Ryuuji Takasu stands in the bathroom, glancing at a magazine page that claims fluffy bangs soften the face and make a person look more attractive. He tries imitating the hairstyles of the boys in the photos, adjusting his bangs in the mirror, but eventually tosses the magazine into the trash. As it hits the can, the container tips over, and Ryuuji crouches down to pick it up, only to notice mold creeping along the apartment walls. Frustration bubbles up inside him because he just cleaned that mold recently. Determined, he grabs a cloth and sets to scrubbing it off again, then moves on to other cleaning around the house. As he moves toward the living room, he spots his mother, Yasuko Takasu, still sleeping on the floor. He tries to pass by quietly, but she playfully traps him with her legs. He frees himself and reminds her that it's the first day of school as he dresses to leave. Still drowsy, she mumbles a request to open the curtains. Ryuuji gestures toward the already open curtains, noting how dim the room remains. The new Takasu residence building next door looms so close that it blocks nearly all the sunlight. Ryuji's mother compliments his intense gaze, observing that he's growing up to look more and more like his father. The remark stirs an immediate anger in him. He sharply warns her not to make that comparison again. A tense silence lingers before he leaves for school. On his way, a student bumps into him. The student and his friend glance up at Ryuji's glare, their faces paling in fear. They hurriedly apologize, thrust their wallets into his hands, and scramble away in panic. Even at school, students keep a careful distance, unsettled by his sharp, intimidating, killer eyes. Only his friend, Kitamura, approaches him without hesitation. As they walk toward the classroom, Kitamura's friend Kushieda appears, making Ryuji blush. He feels nervous when he realizes she's in their class. She cheerfully reintroduces herself to him, her bright smile flustering him further before she heads off. Ryuji bumps into Taiga Aisuka in the hallway, the girl famously nicknamed the Palm-Top Tiger for her fiery temper. The encounter draws the attention of everyone around, and before he can react, Taiga delivers a punch that knocks him backward. He figures out that she's in his class this year as well. Later, Ryuji returns to the classroom and finds Taiga furiously tearing through desks and drawers, making a mess of the place. He approaches his bag, only for Taiga to insist it's hers. Calmly, Ryuji points out that her bag is sitting on a nearby chair. Taiga, however, stands her ground until a sudden sneeze causes her to lose her grip on the bag. She calls him an idiot before storming out. At home, Ryuji opens his drawer and pauses, staring at an old photo of his mother and father. A wave of frustration hits him because the resemblance to his father is a constant reminder of his intimidating appearance. He believes that if he didn't share his father's face, people wouldn't be so scared of him. He reaches into his bag and discovers a love letter addressed to Kitamura, written by Taiga. Realizing that she must have slipped it into his bag by mistake, he grins at the idea that Taiga has a crush on his friend. As he waves the letter playfully in the air, the seal loosens. He decides to reseal it and goes to bed. Around 2 a.m., he hears strange noises in the house, but he knows that his mother is still at work. He finds the sliding glass door to the balcony open. There, he spots Taiga, standing in a nightgown and clutching a wooden sword, clearly intent on making him forget about the letter. As she swings at him, Ryuji dodges, avoiding hits and bumping into furniture. Finally, as she prepares to strike one last blow, he blurts out that the envelope was empty. Ryuji brings her food, which she devours eagerly. Curious, he gently asks what she finds embarrassing about the letter. To ease her nerves, he heads back to his room and returns with a small box filled with MDs and a list of songs he once imagined playing for a girl he liked. Taiga's eyes land on a notebook with her best friend Kushieda's name inside, realizing that Ryuji has feelings for her. He tries to snatch it back, but she pulls it away just in time. To calm her down, Ryuji promises to do whatever he can to get closer to his friend. The next morning, Ryuji is surprised to learn that Taiga lives in the Takasu residence building. Curious, he pays her a visit and finds her apartment in complete disarray. By the time she wakes up, she's greeted by a spotless room, a warm breakfast waiting on the table, and Ryuji washing dishes in the kitchen. Taken aback, she quietly begins eating, glancing at him in surprise. Days later, Taiga sits at the breakfast table with Ryuji, his mother Yasuko, and their parakeet, Inko. Though Ryuji grumbles about her treating his place like her own, Yasuko brushes off his complaints, pointing out that Taiga is small, takes up hardly any space, and that sharing meals together is a good thing. On their way to school, Taiga reminds Ryuji to keep his promise to help her get closer to her crush. Their conversation halts when they run into Kushieda, and Taiga quickly hugs her friend. Kushieda spots Ryuji and misreads the situation, assuming her friend might be dating him. Ryuji confidently explains that he just happened to bump into Taiga, while Taiga casually claims their meeting was by chance. During physical education class, Ryuji and Taiga pair up, planning that Ryuji throw the ball at Kitamura's partner, so he'll have to escort them to the infirmary, leaving Taiga free to pair up with him. As Kitamura teams up with another girl, however, Taiga's jealousy flares up, distracting her. Lost in her frustration, she doesn't dodge in time, and the basketball Ryuji tosses smacks her right in the face. In the home economics room, Taiga bakes cookies. Later, Ryuji encourages her to give them to Kitamura, but Taiga's hands are trembling with nerves. As they enter the classroom, they find Kitamura's desk empty. Ryuji recalls that Kitamura mentioned that he had business to attend to. Spotting Kitamura down the hallway, Taiga quickly tries to catch up, but she slips on the stairs. Luckily, Ryuji is there to catch her just in time, though the bag of cookies flies out of her grasp and sails out the window. Taiga feels like a failure for not being able to give Kitamura the cookies. Ryuji reassures her that they'll have another chance to try again. Suddenly, they hear the sound of footsteps rushing down the hallway. The next day, their classmates begin to speculate that Taiga and Ryuji are a couple, given how much time they spend together. As they enter the classroom, the chatter abruptly ceases, except for Kushieda, who stands up and asks if they can have a minute to talk. On the rooftop, Kushieda confronts them. She kneels down, pleading with Ryuji to take care of Taiga and make her happy. At that moment, Kitamura arrives and congratulates Ryuji and Taiga on their relationship. Overwhelmed, Taiga suddenly passes out. Later, Taiga and Ryuji are upset about what just happened. She opens up to him, sharing that she's been living alone because she hasn't gotten along with her parents and that she has felt more at home in his house. Taiga expresses her frustration, feeling that no one truly understands her, and in a burst of energy, she kicks a nearby utility pole multiple times. Ryuji joins in, and their combined efforts cause the pole to tilt slightly. Taiga decides that she'll confess her feelings to Kitamura. She declares that starting tomorrow, they will just be classmates who live next door to each other. She bids Ryuji farewell, leaving behind her lunchbox as she walks away. The next day, in the stairwell, Ryuji overhears Taiga confessing to Kitamura. Before she can fully express her feelings, Kitamura asks if she's dating Ryuji. Taiga admits she doesn't hate Ryuji, recalling how he supported her, but Kitamura misunderstands her confession as a desire for friendship, leaving her stunned. After he leaves, Ryuji asks her what her next move is. Taiga, wanting to go home, declines Ryuji's offer to cook for her, claiming she doesn't want his help anymore. However, Ryuji insists he's not a dog, but a dragon, promising to stay by her side. This surprises Taiga. As Taiga and Ryuji walk together, they pass a field where Kushieda is playing baseball, laughing and singing as she enjoys the game. Ryuji watches her with admiration, blushing at her carefree spirit. However, when he glances to the side, he finds an irritated Taiga glaring at him. In an instant, she attacks him with 2 fingers, accusing him of being a pervert. As Kitamura heads over to chat with Kushieda about their weekend training, their attention shifts to Taiga poking Ryuji aggressively. Kitamura jokes that although they aren't in any clubs, they're still getting plenty of morning exercise. Later in the classroom, Ryuji spots Taiga and Kushieda sitting together and wonders what they're up to. He soon learns that his crush decorates cell phones as a side job, and she even offers to do one for him. Just imagining it makes his face turn red, and he quickly declines. At home, Ryuji happily talks to himself about Kushieda while cooking. Annoyed by his non-stop chatter about her friend, Taiga finally kicks him in the stomach to shut him up. They realize the rice cooker is broken. They decide to eat out and, to their surprise, discover that Kushieda is working part-time at the restaurant as a waitress. When Ryuji's gaze lingers on her admiringly, Taiga pokes him sharply in the eyes to snap him out of it. Later, they come across Kushieda working yet another job, this time at a liquor store. The owner mentions needing extra help, and Ryuji immediately volunteers himself and Taiga. Later, Taiga, exhausted and frustrated on her way to make a delivery, pauses while pushing a bike she can't ride. Kitamura appears, surprised, and mentions how she couldn't ride last year. Encouraged, she attempts to ride, falls multiple times, but finally returns to the store, scraped up, only to find Ryuji and Kushieda missing. Meanwhile, Ryuji and Kushieda are accidentally locked in the storeroom, passing time by singing and playing with empty bottles. Noticing Kushieda's trembling hand, Ryuji admires her resilience as she insists on reaching a high window. Just as he climbs up, Taiga angrily kicks him back down, accidentally trapping all 3 inside together. In the morning, Ryuji visits Taiga's apartment and heads to her room, finding her still asleep. He tells her to wake up, scolding her for staying up late, and informs her that he's brought breakfast. When he pulls off her covers, she mumbles in her sleep about food and rice. Hearing the word breakfast, her eyes immediately open. Ryuji cleans around the house and notices a cardboard box. Curious, he opens it and finds a photo album filled with blurry pictures of Kitamura. Taiga appears behind him, angry that he's going through her things, and explains that her hands shake whenever she tries to take a photo of Kitamura. Ryuji offers to take the picture himself, and she agrees. At school, Taiga discusses with Ryuji the kind of picture she wants of Kitamura. Just then, Kitamura appears, leaving Taiga stunned as she awkwardly greets him. He responds cheerfully and continues on his way. When Taiga and Ryuji arrive at their classroom, they see two girls surrounding Kitamura, and Ryuji notes how popular his friend is with the girls. He glances at Taiga and notices her frustration as she struggles to hide her reaction. During the morning assembly, Taiga grows visibly irritated at the student council president, Sumire Kano. When Sumire warns students about forgetting their handbooks, Taiga snaps back, accusing her of hypocrisy for judging others despite being forgetful herself. Kitamura steps in quickly, holding Taiga back to prevent further escalation. Later, Ryuji brings Taiga her lunch, but she tells him she's not hungry. She confides in him, torn between guilt for causing Kitamura trouble during the assembly and happiness for being close to him when he held her back. Kitamura had reassured her not to worry, saying he'd moved on from the incident. Noticing Taiga's lunch still untouched, Kitamura asks if he can join, and Kushieda joins as well, so the four of them sit together to eat. When Kitamura learns that Ryuji makes Taiga's lunches, he's surprised. Ryuji quickly claims he's doing it as a side job to earn extra cash. Kitamura and Kushieda both ask to buy lunch from him, and Ryuji assures them he'll make enough for everyone the next day. Soon after, Kushieda leaves with the softball team manager. Taiga drags Ryuji to the softball field, eager for him to take photos of Kitamura in action. Growing impatient as he adjusts the camera, she grabs it from him and begins snapping away, but every shot comes out blurry. Still, Taiga is thrilled with the photos, practically drooling over them. Later that evening, Taiga helps Ryuji cook since he promised to make lunch for Kitamura and Kushieda. Struggling to peel potatoes, she settles on making onigiri instead. After dinner, Taiga goes back to admiring Kitamura's photos, so Ryuji suggests laminating them. She flips through a few more photos, but suddenly her mood shifts, and she snaps at Ryuji. Annoyed, she decides to go home. After class, Taiga asks Ryuji to help her pick the best photos of Kitamura, then leaves him to it. While Ryuji is still looking, Kitamura approaches, and Ryuji accidentally reveals the photos belong to Taiga. Amused, Kitamura shows Ryuji he keeps of Taiga in his handbook, sharing that he once confessed his feelings to her. Later, Taiga explains that she rejected Kitamura initially out of surprise but grew to like him afterward. That night, Ryuji reflects on how much being valued means to Taiga and wonders if things would be different if she hadn't rejected Kitamura so quickly. Ryuji and Taiga visit Johnny's restaurant, where Kushieda works, though Ryuji is disappointed to learn that she's off that day. Kitamura arrives unexpectedly with fashion model Kawashima Ami, whose photo Taiga had just seen in a magazine, and introduces her as his childhood friend. Ryuji and Taiga notice the two are close, and all four sit together. Ami first seems sweet, but her personality shifts sharply when Kitamura and Ryuji leave, revealing a bossy side as she taunts Taiga. When Ami mocks Taiga's height, Taiga slaps her, passing it off as swatting a mosquito. Furious, Ami turns on the tears when Kitamura returns, prompting him to take her home. At Ryuji's house, Taiga devours the rice he made, expressing her frustration over the incident with Ami and her worry that Kitamura might be upset with her. Ryuji reassures her that Kitamura witnessed everything and was also distressed, leading Taiga to snap at him before feeling relieved at the thought of not seeing Ami again. The next day, however, Taiga is shocked to find that Ami is a new transfer student. The class is mesmerized by Ami's beauty. Kitamura confides in Ryuji that he intentionally withheld the news of Ami's transfer, wanting her to show her true self to everyone, and he doesn't actually dislike her. He just wants others to see her for who she really is. Later, Ami approaches Ryuji, discussing their restaurant encounter and taking the blame while asking him to keep it a secret. Ryuji agrees, but Taiga's annoyance grows as she observes them together. During class, Ryuji receives a note from Kushieda, who is suspicious of his relationship with Ami and warns of consequences if he abandons Taiga. When Ryuji inquires about Kushieda's opinion on someone who calls herself a natural airhead, Kushieda responds with a dismissive gesture. After class, Taiga asks Ryuji to clean her locker after she spills a drink. While waiting, Ami arrives, claiming that teachers are worried about Taiga bullying her. Taiga retorts that exposing Ami's true nature would be easy, but decides to keep an eye on her instead. Ami accuses Taiga of having no friends, mentioning Kitamura, which shocks Taiga. Upset, Taiga isolates herself at home until Ryuji reassures her about Kitamura's understanding. They then head to the store, where Taiga reads that Ami is taking a break from modeling. On their way back, they spot Ami in disguise. Ami soon becomes the center of attention among the girls, boasting that she doesn't diet because her fast metabolism keeps her fit. This leads Taiga and Kushieda to grab her and poke at her stomach flap. Annoyed by how they're treating her, Ami briefly shows her true irritation before quickly pretending to cry. trying to turn the situation to her advantage. On the rooftop, Kushieda, Ryuji, and Taiga hang out together. Kushieda spots a boy with a camera standing at the school gate, and they wonder what he's doing there. Later, as Taiga and Ryuji walk home, she surprises him by offering to make him salad. Ryuji is taken aback, not realizing she can cook. Taiga explains that she learned how to make salad in grade school and can even whip up her own dressing. Their conversation is interrupted when Ami suddenly rushes toward Ryuji, clinging to him in a panic. He asks her what's wrong, and she hints that a boy is following her. Ryuji glances back and recognizes the same guy from the school gate. Taiga's irritation boils over as she scolds Ami for clinging to Ryuji. In a fit of anger, she grabs a nearby trash can and hurls it toward Ami, but it misses its target. Ryuji, trying to make sense of the situation, asks Ami if she knows the boy with the camera. She responds that she doesn't, but mentions that these kind of things happen when you're famous. Ami's fans become pushy, leading to her asking Ryuji for a place to hide. Taiga insists she'll handle it and suggests Ami come to her apartment instead, claiming it's fancier and safer than Ryuji's, which she's snuck into before. Ryuji later finds Ami exhausted after Taiga has made her do countless impersonations. Kitamura encourages Taiga to help Ami since she struggles to make real friends, prompting Taiga to invite Ami to lunch with her, Kushieda and Ryuji. When Ami notices that Ryuji and Taiga have the same lunch, Taiga eats his side dishes, leaving him with just fried rice and nori. Ami shares a meatball with Ryuji but questions why he lets Taiga boss him around, to which Taiga jokingly claims that he was her dog in a previous life. Kitamura asks for volunteers for a neighborhood cleanup, and Taiga forces Ryuji to join because she wants to spend time with him. However, Kitamura splits off into another group, leaving Taiga, Ryuji, Ami, and Kushieda to collect trash together. Since Taiga doesn't get along with Ami, she drags Kushieda away, leaving Ryuji and Ami to clean up by the riverside. Ami starts off nice but quickly reverts to her true self after stepping in mud. When Ryuji questions why she's participating, she admits she feels useless without her fake persona. Suddenly, she spots the stalker from before, prompting her to run, with Ryuji following. Ami reveals the stalker ruined her life, causing her to move. Taiga and Kushieda appear, and when the stalker takes pictures of Taiga, she angrily chases him. Ami, realizing she's losing to both Taiga and the stalker, decides to embrace her bad side and pursues them as well. Ami catches the stalker, destroying his camera and shattering his illusion of her. Ryuji arrives to find it all over, and although Ami feels relieved, she admits she was scared. Back at Ryuji's apartment, she reflects on how Taiga is reckless, yet has friends and Ryuji. She wonders what he would do if she showed her true self, leaning close and asking if he'd like her. Before he can respond, Taiga walks in, surprised to find them in that position. Ryuji cooks in the kitchen while Taiga rests her head on the table with Inko in front of her. His mother checks on Taiga, asking if she's feeling all right, but Taiga insists she's fine. Curious about dinner, she asks what's cooking, and Ryuji tells her he's making her favorite takikomi rice. Wanting to ease her mood, he reassures her that Ami was just teasing earlier and didn't mean any harm. The next morning, Ryuji wakes, realizing it's already 8 a.m. Grabbing a broom, he taps on Taiga's bedroom door, hoping to get her up quickly. As Ryuji knocks on Taiga's door, she opens her window at the same time, and he accidentally bops her on the head. Apologizing, he urges her to get dressed quickly, and they rush to school. Once there, they run into Ami, and Taiga nearly starts an argument, but Kushieda intervenes before things can escalate. Ryuji sighs. In class, the teacher announces that the pool will open the next day for a pool day, and Taiga visibly pales. Concerned, Kushieda and Ryuji drag her to a swimsuit shop after school, only to find Ami there as well. Ami wastes no time trying to provoke Taiga by selecting a children's swimsuit for her, then flaunts her own figure in a swimsuit to impress Ryuji. Before she can get too smug, Taiga drags Ryuji into a changing room, frustrated at the idea of wearing something child-sized. She settles on an extra small swimsuit. Ryuji finally convinces her to buy it. At night, Ryuji learns Taiga's real worry is that she doesn't know how to swim. But there's something else. When she starts eyeing his mother's large chest and the soy milk she drinks, he realizes she's a bit self-conscious about her figure, too. Taiga picks up a soybean and eats it, worried because her small chest makes even the extra small swimsuit loose in the top. Noticing her frustration, Ryuji decides to help her feel more confident. He stays up all night sewing custom padding, with Taiga keeping him company and even apologizing for the trouble. When the pads are finally ready, Taiga is thrilled with the result. At the pool the next day, Taiga feels delighted by her new look, though Minori quickly realizes the truth. Kitamura, without his glasses, notices only Taiga's silhouette and compliments her. Enjoying the praise, Taiga's mood quickly shifts when Ami playfully shoves her into the pool. Ryuuji suddenly remembers that Taiga can't swim, but when he dives in to help, he realizes that one of her pads has come loose. He pulls her underwater to keep anyone from noticing and resecures the pad. Afterward, Ami tries to apologize, but things quickly escalate as she tries to persuade Ryuuji and Kitamura to join her at her villa for a summer trip. Annoyed, Taiga threatens her with the footage of her doing 100 impressions in a row, and Kushieda steps in to prevent an argument. With a smile, Kushieda suggests that they settle things with a sports competition. Kushieda declares the athletic match will be a 50-meter freestyle race. Ami lights up with excitement, but Taiga already looks fed up. They agree that if Taiga wins, she'll get to hold a screening of Ami's impression footage, and if Ami wins, Kitamura and Ryuuji will spend the summer vacation with her alone in her beach house. They shake on it, sealing the deal. Most of the class believes Ami has this race in the bag, but Ryuuji has faith that Taiga can pull it off. After class, Ryuuji begins training Taiga to swim. She struggles, her frustration building as other students watch and doubt her, which only distracts her further. Noticing her frustration, Kitamura joins them in the water to offer encouragement, hoping to help Taiga focus on the goal. Taiga blushes, losing her balance, and ends up underwater. Later, at Ryuji's house, she keeps complaining while practicing her hand and leg movements in the air. She explains that she can't focus on swimming properly with Kitamura watching her. Ryuuji, a bit amused, asks if that isn't motivation enough to try her best. Assuming she's doing this to keep Kitamura from going to Ami's villa, Ryuuji mentions it only for Taiga to throw a magazine at him, insisting that he should stay quiet and make her dinner. Over the next few days, Taiga practices swimming outside of the pool. Kitamura gives her and Ryuuji a pair of tickets to the public swimming pool. Ryuuji stands in front of the school, opening his umbrella when Kushieda suddenly appears, startling him. With a knowing smile, she tells him that she's aware of Taiga's swimsuit struggles and all the ways he's been supporting her. Kushieda admits that she trusts him completely and feels confident in trusting her friend to him. They share a smile before bumping fists in silent agreement. At night, rain pours down as Taiga watches from her window, noticing Ryuuji outside quietly praying for clear skies tomorrow. The next day, they head to the public swimming pool together, where Ryuuji discovers that with an inner tube, Taiga glides impressively fast through the water. Excited, he assures her that he's confident she'll win. Just then, it starts raining again. Despite this, Taiga refuses to leave, determined to keep practicing. Ryuuji, puzzled by her perseverance, tries to reassure her, telling her that even if she loses, he'll go to Ami's villa alone to keep Kitamura out of it. He promises he'll make plenty of food and keep it in the freezer for her while she's gone. Taiga frowns, then snaps, accusing him of wanting to go to Ami's beach house all along. Angrily, she tells him she hates it when people assume they know what she's feeling, admitting that even she doesn't always know what's going on in her own heart. Frustrated, Taiga leaves. Ryuuji is left troubled when she doesn't show up for dinner that night. Later, when his mother returns and hears about what happened, she suggests that he consider how Taiga often says the opposite of what she means, gently reminding him that Taiga doesn't actually hate him. The day before the race, Ryuuji encourages Taiga, bringing her a lunch that lifts her spirits, and the rain clears as if in response to his hopes for her success. On race day, Taiga surprises everyone by showing up late and fiercely determined. She starts by throwing objects at Ami, even tearing off Ami's bikini top to gain an advantage, but soon injures her leg. Refusing to quit, Taiga pushes forward. Suddenly, Ryuuji is knocked into the pool by other spectators and starts to drown. Taiga notices immediately, rescues him, and, holding him protectively, scolds everyone for not helping. With teary conviction, she declares that Ryuuji belongs to her, which makes him smile. The following day, Kitamura, Ami, Kushieda, Ryuuji, and Taiga gather at a coffee shop. Taiga surprises everyone by announcing that despite her loss, she'll still be joining them at Ami's beach house. Ami, caught off guard, teases her, hinting that she can't bear to be separated from Ryuuji, especially after declaring he belongs to her the day before. Unfazed, Taiga coolly agrees, startling everyone at the table before adding with a smirk that he's her dog, and as his owner, she has to keep him from misbehaving in someone else's home. She then turns to Ryuuji, asking if he was expecting her to say something else. He shakes his head, saying he wasn't. Kitamura, amused, chimes in, saying that the more people, the merrier. The group arrives at Ami's beach house, and Kushieda is impressed by the stunning view. Ami informs them that they need to tidy up first since the place hasn't been used since last year. This revelation excites Ryuji, who loves cleaning, but Kushieda insists they can save the chores for later and rushes toward the beach instead, her excitement contagious. Kitamura quickly agrees and follows her, and soon Ami and Taiga join in. Left behind, Ryuji begins cleaning the house alone. Meanwhile, Taiga tries to scare Kushieda by claiming there is something in the water that looks like a human head. The thought sends Kushieda into a panic, and she jumps onto Taiga's back, clinging to her. Later, Kitamura prepares to go shopping on Ami's motorcycle. Ryuji suggests taking Taiga, but she refuses, saying she's afraid of motorcycles, so he takes Kushieda instead. Ryuji heads upstairs to check out the bathroom, only to discover that Ami is already in the shower. When he tries to leave, she grabs his arm and teasingly suggests they do something secret together. Moments later, she emerges fully dressed. Flustered, Ryuji runs to Taiga to tell her what happened. In the kitchen, Ami and Taiga bicker over the type of curry to prepare. Ryuji promises to make Taiga's portion sweet to settle the argument, while Ami warns that only treating Taiga specially might turn other girls against him. Kitamura joins the conversation wrapped in a towel, causing Taiga to nearly faint and Kushieda to start taking photos. When Kitamura accidentally drops his towel, Ryuji quickly covers him up and tells Kushieda it was the seaweed ghost. To cheer her up, he makes her curry extra spicy, which she loves, but the others struggle with the heat. Taiga feels unwell afterward, leaving Kitamura to offer her stomach medicine. Ryuji takes this chance to let Taiga spend time alone with Kitamura, allowing him to wash dishes with Kushieda. After finishing the dishes, Ryuji and Kushieda enjoy dessert under the moonlight. Ryuji asks if she has a boyfriend, but she instead talks about ghosts, explaining she believes in them yet has never seen one, much like love. She feels distant from those who have fallen in love and considers giving up hope. Ryuji encourages her not to lose faith. Later, Taiga asks Ryuji to heat up leftovers, and they discuss their feelings. Taiga admits spending the day with Kitamura was more stressful than enjoyable, but she feels at ease with Ryuji. As they return to their rooms, they discover strange hair and slime on Ryuji's bed and a stained dress on Taiga's. Their moment of confusion is interrupted by loud banging on the door and balcony window. It's morning, and Ryuji and Taiga haven't slept a wink due to the frightening events of the previous night. Taiga begins brainstorming new plans to scare Kushieda, but Ryuji counters that they can execute their plan if they're still scared themselves. Just then, Kitamura overhears their conversation and confronts them, startling them both. He wonders whether they are responsible for Kushieda's meltdown yesterday and asks why they would do such a thing. Taiga responds that it's their gift to her, given her love for all things scary, and they want to make this summer unforgettable for her. Kitamura looks at Taiga, causing her to blush, and he agrees, noting that it's no surprise Kushieda's eyes sparkled with excitement as if she craved more. Kitamura eagerly asks to join their plan and suggests bringing Ami along as she knows the area well. He assures them that he'll convince her to participate. Later, Kushieda wakes up to a delicious breakfast prepared by Ryuji, who is now making lunch. She offers to help him, recalling how she used to make lunch for her brother. As they cook, Kushieda compliments Ryuji's cooking skills, noting how lucky the girl who marries him will be. Later, Kitamura reveals that Ami will lead them to a nearby cave for their scare plan. Ryuji goes to find Ami, asking Taiga to hold his heavy bag, but she struggles and falls. When Kitamura rushes to assist her, she insists she's fine. Ryuji walks in on Ami in her swimsuit, trying not to stare at her cleavage. Ami notices his hesitation and threatens not to help with Kushieda's scare unless he answers her questions about why he wants to entertain Kushieda. When Ryuji remains silent, Ami decides she won't help after all. At the cave, Kitamura goes in alone to avoid raising Kushieda's suspicions. He returns at lunchtime with Ami, who proposes that they all go to the cave. Despite its intimidating appearance, Kitamura encourages everyone to enter, revealing that he has set up various scary surprises. One involves a piece of fried tofu swinging down to hit Taiga instead of Kushieda, and another is a bloody ketchup message on the wall that distracts Ryuji, who ends up with slimy hair on his hand. This freaks Kushieda out, leading Kitamura to wrongly suspect Ryuji is behind everything. As Ami grows bored and decides to leave, Ryuji follows her. Ami teases him about being scared of the dark, prompting him to admit his fear of being alone. Ami compares Ryuji to the moon and Kushieda to the sun, suggesting he needs someone like her rather than just admiring Kushieda. Their conversation is interrupted by Kushieda's scream, and they rush deeper into the cave. After a minor mishap, they find Kitamura helping Taiga up and realize that the spooky setups were orchestrated by him and Kushieda, who reveals her love for horror. Later, as night falls, the group plays with fireworks. Ryuuji shares a moment alone with Ami, admitting he will feel lonely without her and encourages her to express her feelings straightforwardly. Ami comments on Ryuuji's surprisingly nice demeanor. Ryuuji then talks to Kushieda, thanking her for the fun despite his earlier fear. Kushieda admits she enjoyed herself and shares her desire to explore ghosts together. The next day, Ryuuji proposes to Taiga that they go to the supermarket, but she protests her fatigue. Nonetheless, when he walks away, she rushes to catch up, still reluctant about shopping. On the 1st of September, the student council discusses the upcoming one-day culture festival. They vow to make it an exciting event. Later, Taiga brings Ryuuji her torn gym pants and blames Ami for the damage. Ryuuji promises to sew them up, but later notices Taiga ignoring a call from her father, whom she refers to as a shitty old man because he remarried and abandoned her. The following day, during a class meeting led by Haruta, they discuss the festival's events and who to nominate for the school beauty contest. Haruta nominates Ami, but since she's presiding over the ceremonies, Ami suggests Taiga instead. Despite Taiga's initial resistance, she is rendered speechless when Kitamura supports the idea. The boys push for a cosplay cafe, while the girls prefer a haunted house, but their suggestions are ignored. Haruta mistakenly conducts a lottery instead of a vote, resulting in a professional wrestling show as their festival event. Taiga's anger towards Ami shifts to surprise when she discovers her bank account is empty, realizing it's due to ignoring her father's calls. She sets up a meeting with him but sends Ryuuji in her place. Taiga's father, disappointed that she didn't come, treats Ryuuji to a lunch and reveals that he's separating from his young wife and wants to live with Taiga again. Ryuuji returns home to tell Taiga, but she refuses to listen. The next day, Haruta hands out a script for their wrestling show, casting Ami as the heroine and Taiga as the villain, with Ryuuji as her underling. Their practice is interrupted when Kitamura announces a competition for the best festival event, which offers prizes. Later, Taiga confronts her father, kicking him in the crotch and calling him a stalker as she heads towards Ryuuji's apartment. Ryuuji intervenes, insisting she talk to her father, but Taiga refuses, leading to a heated argument. In a moment of frustration, Ryuuji reveals his own family struggles, prompting Taiga to stop him. She agrees to confront her father, wanting to avoid seeing Ryuuji sad. She returns to her father, allowing him to hug her. Ryuuji watches them. The culture festival approaches, and the students prepare enthusiastically. Despite running low on posters, Kitamura reassures everyone that he will ask for more copies. Ami tries on her costume, seeking opinions from her classmates who admire her look. At the end of the day, as they walk home, Taiga turns to Ryuuji, asking if she smells sweaty, confident that she can skip a shower. Ryuuji inquires if she plans to have dinner with her father, and she elbows him for not addressing her main concern. He assures her that she doesn't stink. Ryuuji reminds Taiga that her father is putting in a lot of effort to make time for her despite his busy schedule. She argues that it's not enough to erase the past, but since he knows some great places to eat, she might as well humor him for a bit. As they approach her home, Taiga spots her father's car parked outside and panics, worried he's early and she doesn't have time to change her clothes. Ryuuji watches her with a smile, pleased to see her and her father trying to make it work. Taiga reveals to Ryuuji that her father is coming to the festival to watch. After mustering her courage, she approaches Ami with a favor in mind. First, she hands Ami a box of rare, expensive macaron, and then asks if they can swap roles for the cultural festival wrestling show, saying she wants to try taking on a bigger part. Meanwhile, Kushieda and Ryuuji are watching from a distance. Kushieda is curious about Taiga's sudden interest in a larger role, and Ryuuji explains that Taiga's father is coming to watch, so she wants to impress him. This revelation angers Kushieda, who confronts Ryuuji, upset that he has allowed Taiga's father to come back into her life. She argues that Taiga shouldn't trust her father, leading to a heated argument as Ryuuji defends the man's efforts. Taiga, noticing the tension, tries to help them reconcile, but Ryuuji walks away, frustrated. Ryuuji sits alone until Ami approaches him. She teases him about yelling at his crush, but tries to cheer him up, suggesting they go to the dress rehearsal. Though initially resistant, Ryuuji's spirits lift slightly as he notices Ami's recent positive change, prompting him to express his own desire to grow. At home, Ryuuji's mother, Yasuko, mentions that she saw Taiga's father from the balcony. She tells Ryuuji that he plans to move Taiga, saying their current home is too small for them to live together. Yasuko, visibly upset, calls it selfish for him to re-enter Taiga's life and immediately start making such big changes. She admits she doesn't want Taiga to leave, saying she's already part of their family. At the festival, Ryuuji hesitates, unsure if he should apologize to Kushieda. Meanwhile, the wrestling show is a success, even though Taiga didn't get the role that she had hoped for. Taiga's father fails to show up for her wrestling performance, and she keeps checking her phone, hoping he'll still come. Watching her, Ryuuji recalls Kushieda's warnings and silently wishes they won't come true, hoping her father might arrive even if late. As the second event, the Miss Ohashi High School pageant begins, Ryuuji notices Ami subtly trying to steal the spotlight as MC. She introduces the contestants one by one, and when Taiga takes the stage, the audience is captivated by her beauty. To add excitement, Ami announces that Taiga's father is in the audience and invites him to make himself known. Taiga looks around expectantly, only to realize he isn't there. Heartbroken, she asks Ami to introduce the next contestant and tries to exit the stage, but she trips and falls. Furious and teary-eyed, she stands up and angrily tears her dress in half. Moved, Ryuuji begins clapping for her, and Kushieda, with tears streaming down her face, joins him. Soon, the entire audience follows suit, applauding Taiga with the admiration and support she deserves. She wins the beauty pageant, but the night isn't over yet. A race is held among the male students to determine who will dance with Taiga. Ryuuji, determined to win, pushes himself to outrun nearly everyone until Kushieda catches up. Seeing her reminds him of her earlier warnings about Taiga's father, and he feels a pang of regret for not heeding them. Just then, two track team members shove them back, so Kushieda retaliates by nailing both with a softball and tackling others, gaining on them. She urges Ryuuji to go on, but instead, he pulls her up, and they cross the finish line hand in hand. From the sideline, Taiga watches, thinking they don't need to worry so much. She can stand on her own. Afterward, Taiga returns to her usual self, and Kushieda confides in Ryuuji that Taiga's father had abandoned her the same way the previous year. She apologizes for not telling him and admits she might have felt a bit jealous that Taiga opened up to him. Her introspection even leads her to question her feelings, wondering aloud if she might like girls, only to realize she's speaking to Ryuuji naturally and comfortably. Meanwhile, Taiga ends up dancing with Kitamura, who requested the honor, even though he didn't win the race. Their entire class joins in, dancing together as a group.